threw all responsibility over to Masayuki, whether he knew it or not. So, in addition to sharing plans for implementing the evacuation drills we proposed, we decided that the new emperor would be invited to sit in the next Council of the West session. And, yeah, that's what's been happening the past 5 months. Maybe some minor mishaps here and there, but overall, the prep work's been going pretty steadily. The next council meeting will be held in Inglesia in 2 weeks, and Masayuki had already built a pretty good consensus with the top councillors. The Empire's admission into the Western nations was already all but set in stone, and I felt safe in trusting Testarossa with the details. On the surface, at least, all of humankind was now united under a single mission. The demon lords were all fully prepared. All we could do now is hope that the enemy force wasn't stronger than we expected. But as I thought over this, I received a sudden contact from Dino. Hey, it's Dino. Can you hear me? Of course I can. Any moves? This wasn't his regular morning check-in, so clearly something was up. Well, yeah, more or less, so I thought I'd let you know. There's so much going on, I don't even know where to begin, really. Huh? He wasn't being too coherent with me, but clearly something was up. We had a pretty peaceful last few months, but that all ended the moment he called me. Chapter 3, The Clowns Reminisce. Back when Kigali was dragged away from the battlefield by Feldway several months ago, she lost consciousness at the same time Lieutenant Kondo breathed his last in the fight, the result of his rule over her being snapped. But when she came to, she found herself in a world she had no knowledge of. What's going on? She attempted to grasp the situation. Then she found a familiar face near her. Dino. Yo. Looks like you're up, huh, Kazalim? Guess that guy Kondo is dead, then. Why, you noticed I was. Oh. I'm sure the boss told you. Dino using the name she abandoned surprised Kigali, but as her eyes focused more, she discovered Yuki, lazily sitting on a chair and looking like he wasn't even there. He, much like Kigali, had been placed under the rule of someone. And when Kigali realized this, she instantly determined that it wouldn't be strange at all if Yuki revealed her identity to the world. Yeah, kind of. I dunno exactly what happened to you, but honestly, I like how you look now a lot better. Kigali looked nothing at all like the demon lord Kazalim, and Dino wasn't afraid to say it out loud. As detached as ever. I can never read him. She began to relax a bit. To be honest, she didn't have nearly enough fighting force at the moment. She'd merit an over A rank, yes, but in the eyes of true monsters, she was just a face in the crowd. Dino's powers were unknown, but she knew she didn't stand a chance. So Kigali pursued her best option at the moment, intelligence gathering. So where am I? Dino scowled. You know it's not your own world, right? This is kind of a special place. It's right next to every world out there, but it's isolated from them, too. The origin point. We call it the Celestial Palace. It wasn't a familiar name. But a few keywords stood out to her. The origin point? Not the place where Veldenava the Star King Dragon was born? The origin point, the place that existed even before all the worlds were created. A folktale, recorded only within mythology. It was claimed to exist, but nobody had ever seen it before. How? You need a key to go through the gate leading to here, but I didn't know what that key was, either. But now that I've been taken here, I know how it works. Can't tell you, but... That annoyed Kigali. But then she recalled that Dino hated to do anything he deemed unnecessary. If he wasn't going to tell her, then Kigali could do nothing to make him. It was time to ask something else. Well, I won't force you, so if you can just tell me what you're able to. Ugh, what a pain. We've known each other a long time now. You could do at least that much for me. Tisk. Not that I get anything out of it. I seem to remember doing a lot of work for you. Before Kigali could finish, Dino had straightened up. What do you wanna ask me? And when you do, you'll forget about the past for me, won't you? Yes, of course I will, Kagali smiled. Dino was the same as ever. That was a relief, despite how confusing everything else was at the moment. So our boss, I mean Yuki Kagurazuka there, why is he still being mind-controlled by someone? You said earlier that Kondo was dead, but... Wait. You don't mean... You really are quick on the uptake, aren't you? I think you got it right, so I'll say it. You were being controlled by Kondo, but Yuki over there was being controlled by the guy who lent that skill to Kondo. I knew it. She didn't want to believe it, the fact that someone out there could actually lend the power of mind control to other people. But Dino wasn't a liar that way. If he didn't want to admit to something, he'd just keep his mouth shut. And that made it seem all the more truthful. Yuki was being controlled. Despite having this one-of-a-kind superbody that cancelled out all skills, there was something that could break through that. It was nothing short of terrifying. Kagali wanted to restore Yuki to normal so she could get out of here, but she had no idea how. And if that's how it was... Where are my beautiful children? You mean the guys standing behind you? Kagali quickly turned around. She hadn't detected anyone there before, and she couldn't have, for that matter. Oh. So they've gone into killing mode. Following only my orders, no one else's. She chided herself for being in such a panic, despite her intentions otherwise. She cancelled the order, bringing Tyr and Footman back to normal. There were also around 9 unfamiliar-looking walking dead standing in line with them, but Kagali gave them no notice. But she did have some vague memories of back when her mind was being controlled. She recalled using the forbidden curse Dead Birthday as commanded, so these walking dead must have been created at that time. But she felt no personal attachment to them. She never intended to create them, after all. Oh. Hey, President. You're okay, huh? I was real worried. Ho 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 ho. I firmly agree with Tyr, President. Did the boss save us? No, he didn't. And there's no point hiding it, so I'll just say that we're in a terrible situation. She told the two of them what was going on. Dino had fallen asleep, not minding being ignored at all. Wow. Guess we didn't live up to expectations, huh? Of course you did, Tyr. Even the boss had his mind controlled. I'm sure there was nothing we could have done to resist it. So now what'll we do? Footman asked. Are we just gonna go along with it? Yeah, added Tyr, can't we just escape? I don't see any guards. That's the problem, Kagali darkly responded. I'd like to escape, of course, but I guess we're in this celestial palace on another world. Magic won't get us out. Kagali had already tried out the elemental magic warp portal long ago. If it showed any sign of working, she was ready to leave, taking Tyr, Footman, and Yuki with her. But since she had no idea of her current coordinates, she had no way to activate the spell. Luckily, the thrall on me was broken, but whoever did it knew that regaining my senses wouldn't let me do anything. It was agonizing, but it was the truth. Nobody was guarding them, no, but that's only because nobody thought Kagali and his companions could escape. Dino? Hey. What's up? I was trying to enjoy a nap here. Got another question? I doubt you'll answer this one, but is there any way to get out of this place? You think there is? No. Right? I always appreciated how sharp you were like that. So, yeah, better stop wasting your time and start behaving yourself, you know. She saw that coming. But now Kagali was truly stuck. The Celestial Palace was a very small, very flat world. It existed within a single sphere, the lower half Earth and the top half the sky. It was perfectly level and around 40 square miles in size, its climate mild with no seasonal fluctuation, and in the middle of it was a beautiful white castle. But that was everything. No flowers withered on it, no fruit rotted on the branch, no water was tainted, and the earth was never parched. The fields of flowers were always in full bloom, and what trees there were always bore the tastiest, sweetest smelling fruit. It felt like time had stopped there, such was the complete lack of change. Kagali and the rest were held in a small, square structure set up for them in the middle of a garden. The whole of the castle was visible from there, and if they turned around, they could see a huge gate on the edge of the world. There was never any sign of anyone leaving the castle, but as long as the gates remained closed, there seemed to be no way out from here. So Cagali, undeterred by Dino's reply, calmly thought about what to do. But then someone came out from the castle to bother her. He was a man with a stout, muscular physique and a face that seemed to know no fear. His entire body seemed to course with pure spirit, hinting at the exceptional strength he had. "We can't have you here, Sir Dino. Someone of your stature shouldn't be so familiar with these people." The man looked down on Cagali, seeing no reason not to. Who is this guy? Thought and annoyed Cagali, but for now she put up with this treatment. She was always cautious that way. "You were, gnome, right? Looks like you successfully installed yourself in that body, huh?" "That I did. This man Viga's body was the perfect catalyst for me. He regenerates quickly, and at this rate, I think everyone will succeed in their incarnations, Sir Dallas included." "Great," murmured a disinterested Dino. Cagali, following none of this, silently listened on. Viga, or Viga the Power, as he was called, was one of the 3 leaders of Cerberus. This had to be him, she thought. Her faint memories included a couple of scenes of him joining her on the way here. Viga, a catalyst? Was he a vessel for one of these guys to take physical form in? It's possible, yes. This man has inherited the blood of a magical inquisitor, one of the greatest results of Rotzo's research. He's a freak of nature bearing both human and monster traits. And as long as he's kept fed, he can recover from any injury, no matter how brutal. If his arms were cut off, they'd simply grow back. In fact, their experiments proved that even if only the head remained, the rest of the body could still regenerate itself. But the horrors only began there. Any part that was chopped off the main body would attempt to regenerate into a mindless monster. That was why Yuki had given Viga strict orders to bring his limbs back if any got sliced off. This gnome person must have taken advantage of this unique trait of Viga's to obtain an empty, soulless body of his. But why does he need a body in the first place? Who is he anyway? A demon, if he needs to procure a physical form like this? No. From this divine presence, he must be an angel. In which case, this would be a far more powerful vessel than any human or monster. Cagali's thoughts raced. She had lost the majority of her fighting power, but her brain was alive and well. Already, she had a rough conclusion. This man-gnome was an angel, or some similar spiritual life form, and he was brought into physical existence to invade other worlds. Viga was being used as a catalyst in order to create physical bodies for these angels. He was alive, chances are, but not in any position to act. And she was correct on all this, except that Gnome was actually a mystic. By fusing his body with Viga's cells, he had performed a magicule-fueled transformation of their temporary bodies, strengthening them immensely. That allowed Gnome and his ilk to take in the component matter, triggering a complete physical incarnation. This component matter was proteins and carbohydrates recovered from the ground. To put it in less scientific terms, all they had to do was eat to build their physical bodies. It was different from the Walking Dead method, but it was more convenient for mystics like Gnome, as they were only demi-spiritual life forms. Gnome, by the way, was one of the mystics working directly under Zorario. He was stationed back at home while his kin attacked Ramirez's labyrinth, so he was there when Feldway returned with Viga and the others, allowing him to attain this body. Zorario's team came back a bit later on, just in time to meet up with Dino and the others. Gnome was the first to complete his incarnation, as he was the test case for others to follow. That was why he was still alone for the time being. Once a Thronus, he was now a general rank mystic, placing him on the lower end of the upper classes. With his incarnation, he now had access to more power than a demon lord seed. And from his perspective, Cagali, not much different from a human, was nothing more than a pile of trash. That's why he had no qualms about acting superior to her. "Cagali, you should know that you are nothing more than a tool for increasing our strength," said Gnome. "Kondo was a somewhat useful tool to us, and perhaps you've regained your free will after his death, But don't let that fool you. Sir Dino over there is on a far higher level than any of you. Whoa, that's enough. No, Sir Dino. You are one of the great 7 primordial angels, are you not? Talking so casually with these lowly people. You are offering far too much mercy to them. I told you, Kazalim and I are old acquaintances. My name's Kagali now. Could you call me that going forward? Normally I'd say, no way, that's a pain in the ass, but Kagali is shorter. Let's go with that. Kagali was now a beautiful woman, not at all like before. The names seemed to match as well, so Dino didn't put up much resistance. There they were, ignoring Gnome while having a friendly conversation. It annoyed Gnome greatly. His master was a former cherub given the name Dalis, a noble figure gifted in combat who served as Zerario's second in command. Not even Dalis, however, could compete against the supreme beings known as the primordial angels. Much like Gnome and the rest, his name was not acquired just recently. As apostles created and named by Veldenava himself, they had served as great seraphim, attacking and destroying the evil demons of the world since their creation. From Gnome's point of view, they were as good as gods. Kagali's attitude was therefore unacceptable. Dino might have allowed it, but letting this behavior go unchecked would affect Zerario's status as well, Gnome thought. It was time to force the issue. I told you to stop getting carried away. Kagali, sitting on a chair, was hit with a bolt of heavenly light, a high-speed mass of spiritual energy. Dino didn't move. He didn't need to. Ho 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 ho. Are we done talking now? You know, the only one being rude right now is you. Yeah, he's right. Let's do it, footman. So Kagali's valued friends, her ever-faithful clowns, stood up against Gnome with all their might. The battle was as fierce as it was one-sided. Gnome was a war-tested mystic under Zerario's command, with experience in multiple battles against the Insectors. He had only just obtained physical form, but he felt perfectly comfortable with it. In fact, it felt like an upgrade in fighting ability for him. His existence points exceeded 1 million, and his magicule count was expanding even now, filling in his empty body. He couldn't have been in better shape, and here he was pitted against Footman, someone better in combat than the Clayman of old. He wasn't gifted with intelligence, but his sheer power was unmatched, earning him an EP of 1.3 million. Now that all restrictions were removed from his behavior, he was demonstrating force nobody could have imagined back during his fight against Geld. Boom, Footman shouted as he punched Gnome. Gar? Gnome was sent flying, his face caved in. Ho ho ho. Let's keep it going. He was no longer a threat to Footman, who kept punching, and punching, and punching. He grabbed him by the legs, swinging him around and throwing him into the air, then followed him upward, using the rebound to build his momentum as he plunged like a cannonball into Gnome's back. GRVH. Then he grabbed Gnome, slamming him into the ground. The force, enlarged by Footman's pressure on his back, was enough to shatter the earth underneath. Footman wasn't smart, but he had a brilliant sense for fighting. With the cells from Viga's body in him, Gnome would be able to regenerate just fine, no matter how battered and shredded he became. Footman instinctively realized the pointlessness of a normal approach, so he instead opted for a style designed to build up damage and rob him of his stamina. Gnome, meanwhile, was puzzled. This Footman was far stronger than he imagined. Why, you're kidding me. How can I, a general in the Mystic Force, be so inferior to this complete unknown? Acquiring a body had greatly enhanced his fighting ability, and he was still being dominated. It was bewildering. What are you? Me? I'm Footman. Footman the Angry Jester, part of the Moderate Jesters. Good to meet you. He gave Gnome a condescending bow. He was totally relaxed, rankling his opponent. Then Tyr came in with the follow-up. Hey, I'll give my name, too. I'm Tyr. Tyr the Teardrop Jester, from the Moderate Jesters. And once Footman is done, you better play with me, too. Her voice was cutesy and lilting, but it couldn't hide her evil intentions. She wasn't as strong as Footman, but she was still a menace. Her EP was over 1 million, and her unique skill was one nefarious finisher. For now, she wouldn't make any moves, but if Footman was defeated, that was when she'd head into the fray. She watched on, waiting eagerly for that moment. Footman's onslaught began anew. Punching, kicking, slamming, he continued to torment Gnome, like a cat chasing a mouse. Gnome was growing panicked. Footman and Tyr laughed jovially, and Cagali, watching all this, calmly analyzed the situation. This is awful. At this rate, we have no future here. Even if we win this battle, this gnome guy is still just an underling. I know Tyr's here for me, but I don't think there's much we can do. Cagali took a glance at Yuki. And I doubt Tyr could win against someone that Sir Yuki couldn't. Angels and demons can't be physically destroyed in the first place. If they had the right skill, it'd be a different story, but even if they killed Gnome here, he'd be revived soon enough. The moment Vega's cells were incorporated in his body, it became all but physically impossible for him to die. And if he was likely to come back good as new anyway, this whole battle seemed pointless. Defeat, in the end, was guaranteed. Cagali, knowing this, began to feel like a fool. Stop it, Footman. That's enough playing. Ho? Are you sure, President? Yes. We can't escape from here regardless. Maybe we can if we could destroy that big gate, but I just don't see a way. If Dino could be believed, this celestial palace was a closed world. Some sort of key was required to pass through the gate, and Cagali had no way of acquiring it. They were at a dead end. Gnome laughed loudly. Ha! Ha 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 ha. That's right, and if you understand that, it saves us all a lot of time. All you gotta do is work as hard as you can for us, all right, you tool? Do that, and I'll treat you as well as any capable servant deserves. Footman had stopped moving, and Gnome knew what that meant. Failing to defeat this adversary was beyond unexpected, but Cagali, his master, was an intelligent woman. As long as Cagali was under their control, Footman and Tyr were just puppets, no threat to Gnome's authority at all. Thinking that helped Gnome regain his composure. But the next moment, he was frightened by the overwhelming presence of death that wrapped around him. It pains me to see this state of affairs, Gnome. It was a mistake to ever grant you a name. At some point, the large gate had opened, revealing 3 figures. One of them was an outstanding beauty, with long, jet-black hair that seemed to be studded with stars from the night sky. It was Zorario, head of the 3 mystic leaders. He had returned home, keeping his presence hidden as he watched Gnome speak and fight. The sheer ineptitude he showed was a staggering disappointment. Pico and Gasha, his companions, began to walk toward Dino. Hey, guys. Wrapped up your work? Yeah. We come in, tired from a long day's work, and you guys are fighting. Hey, what's going on? It's just like what you see, Dino said in a hushed voice, shrugging. Sensing he was in no mood to explain matters, Pico and Gasha turned their attention to Gnome. Sir Zorario, keep my name out of your mouth. No. Please, wait, this is all a misunderstanding. You are mistaken. Everything I say is justice. It is right. There is no such thing as a misunderstanding. But agreeing with him would be admitting his mistake. Denying it would be an act of open hostility towards Zorario. Gnome was instantly in the greatest crisis of his life, and he couldn't think of a way out. Compared to you, no, it'd be rude to even do that. She may be one of Feldway's pickups, but even she is far more useful to me. Zorario's words were plain, without a hint of emotional wavering. Gnome still sensed something ominous in them. Please, wait, he shouted frantically, but it was too late. Zorario was a noble man, and he had no time for fools. You have committed the crime of misjudging your own worth. In light of the many years you've served me, I will forgive you, but only by erasing your personality. So came the cruel verdict. Erase his personality. Cagali was amazed. No. Please, no. Forgive me, Zorario, please forgive. Zorario had not allowed him to state his name again. Jupiter flash. A single flash of lightning danced from his fingertips, a defined bolt that seared Gnome. His body was unharmed, but the heart core had been overwritten with a cataclysmic amount of data, re-initializing it with a new personality. It was a staggering power to have. Zorario had not actually been seriously fighting in Ramires's labyrinth at all. And Cagali, witnessing this force, realized just how hopeless her situation was. Well, that's it. This isn't the kind of opponent I could even begin to fight. I thought Dino was a lot of trouble, but this man. He's in the same class as Guy, or Milim. It was of another dimension. And it was at that point when Cagali gave up all further resistance. So, she drummed up the courage to ask, "What's going to happen to me?" If she was going to be executed, so be it, she just wanted to retain her pride until the end. "Nothing's going to happen. I suppose Gnome was causing you some trouble, but don't expect an apology for that." What? The matter was so quickly resolved, it puzzled Cagali. But from Zorario's point of view, he was telling the truth about everything. Cagali had been picked up by Lieutenant Kondo, but Kondo himself was only carrying out Feldway's will. She had been taken so she could create vessels for further physical incarnations, using a skill granted by Michael. That was now complete, and although it resulted in only 9 bodies, they were all excellent specimens. As transcendent beings, Zorario and his team needed to be choosy about which bodies they would incarnate into. Regular humans and monsters, much like the temporary bodies they were currently using, would disintegrate under the kind of power they wielded. It was a similar situation to back when the primordial angels fought each other, competing to get incarnated first. These difficulties manifesting themselves in the material world made their invasion strategy far more difficult than it should have been. Then Cagali happened to be in the right place at the right time, and they came up with the idea of using the Walking Dead as a base. They'd need to experiment first, but the results were superb. They'd later stumble upon the idea of using Viga's body as well, but the side effects of that led directly to Gnome's outburst. This body seemed to be altering Gnome's very personality for the worse. Zorario chalked it up as a failure. By comparison, the Walking Dead had no free will. And since Footman had clearly just proven his powers, it was decided that he'd be strong enough to withstand being possessed by Zorario and the others. Well, so much for the idea of using that man Viga. Gnome was always a more prudent man than that. I can only assume the body was influencing him the wrong way. Zorario muttered those words to no one in particular. To Cagali, they were food for thought. She replied to him without thinking, even though what he'd said needed no response. Viga's a greedy man. He symbolizes power itself. He practically lives off desire and ambition, and it enhances him. Oh, she thought. But it was too late. Zorario was silently pressuring her into continuing. Viga is a very pure-minded man. He serves the strong and preys on the weak. It may be vile of him, but those are the convictions he lives by. And that's what makes him so powerful. He never feels bad about losing. If he thinks he can't win, he won't hesitate to become as servile as possible. If he can survive and take that experience to the next round, he'll see that as a win. That's why Viga has never felt like he lost. Any opponent who lets him go is a fool who he'll get even with someday, once he's able to beat him. That was how Cagali saw Viga. But in terms of greed, of course, Sir Yuki is the clear winner. Yuki had a good grasp of Viga's personality, and he had the strength to take advantage of it. Cagali had to respect him for that. I see. So you're saying that this greed, this insatiable desire, has penetrated so deeply into Viga that it exists at the cellular level? Cagali didn't think she had explained herself well enough. Now she nodded at Zorario's precise analysis. Exactly. So I don't recommend propagating his cells for use in your projects, to be honest. I'll make a note of that, Zorario said, turning his eyes toward the castle. But, yes, there's no making use of him, then. Follow me. Huh? Zorario was already walking briskly toward the castle. Gnome, who barely registered with anyone here now, followed. Kigali wasn't sure what to do, but she decided that disobeying him was unwise. "You all follow me, too," she told her comrades. "Right away." "Okay." So Kigali came after Zarario, accompanied by footman and Tyr. Yuki also followed Kigali, as if that were perfectly natural of him. The only ones left there were Dino, Pico, and Gasha. "So now what are we gonna do? What can we do? It's none of our business." "Yeah. That's what I sure think, yeah. But Pico, don't try to ingratiate yourself with Dino too much. I can't have you turning out all weird on me, too." "Okay." "Hey, why are you talking about me like I'm some kind of failure?" "Well, aren't you? You're the lamest angel ever. Totally a fallen angel." "Oh, shut up. I bet you think that sounds really cool, but shut up." Their shouting echoed across the small house they occupied. Upon stepping into the castle, Kigali was immediately impressed by how majestic it was. She thought she had expended every effort to make the castle she gave Clayman as luxurious as possible, but now she realized she hadn't done nearly enough. That royal palace she lived in long ago looked like a hovel compared to here. "It's wonderful." "Of course it is. This is the home of Lord Veldenava." Kigali hadn't expected a reply. It made her rethink her opinion of Zarario. Maybe he was a lot more open to conversation after all. She mulled this as they reached their destination, a room with 2 large cultivation tanks, looking a bit like a laboratory. 5 people were surrounding one of the tanks, and floating inside of it was something human-shaped. Taking a closer look revealed a figure who looked like Viga's identical twin. The staff all turned upon noticing Zarario, bowing their heads. "Welcome back, Sir Zarario," one of them said on their behalf. This man's name was Dalis. Mystics were all genderless, strictly speaking, but he had been serving Zarario in a male form since way back from his time as a cherub. Zarario gave him a light nod and immediately announced his business. "The project's hereby cancelled." "Yes, sir." Dalis didn't ask why. Zarario's words were always correct, no matter what he said, and as they saw it, their only job was to follow them. This was why angels were consistently described as having little self-awareness, and why Gnome was so easily influenced by Viga's cellular-level greed. "I went through all the trouble of granting all of you names. Now I'm not sure the benefits were worth it." "I'm very sorry, sir. Are we at fault in any way?" "No, nothing like that. Surely I was just expecting too much." Zarario always did his best at everything, but he didn't expect every single outcome to be perfect. He tried to accurately evaluate the results he was given, in the hopes they'd come in useful later on. Thus, no matter the outcome, he never had an emotional attachment to his projects. Dalis, meanwhile, was deathly afraid of disappointing Zarario. Despite his frustration, he meekly followed his words, ordering his staff members Gnome and Baron to shut off the cultivation tank. Nice, Dalis's fellow supervisor, had no objection to this, ordering her researchers Bem and Sohn to assist her. While Dalis and Nice had defined genders, the same was not true for former Throne-like Gnome. However, as Zarario mentioned, they had recently obtained names, which subsequently helped them grow distinctive personalities. They were becoming individuals now, although it was still a work in progress. During one invasion Zarario wished he could take back. Cornu, a fellow mystic leader, lost control over some of his troopers because they were possessed by the locals. This was due, they believed, to a weak sense of ego among the angels. As a countermeasure, it was decided to grant names to the top management, but only the ex-angels among them. However, after several decades, the amount of change was still pretty scant, leading Zarario to believe that little further growth could be expected. That was why he was looking for a suitable vessel for himself to possess. "I thought using Viga's body as a base for cultivation was feasible, but I had no idea even his cells were so corrupted. The only other way is to use the walking dead we've created." They had only 9 of them, which was enough to provide bodies to the current top ranks. But Feldway was also planning to have Michael invoke Armageddon in order to boost their strength further. When it happened, instead of summoning a vast number of angels at once, they planned to concentrate their energies and create a handful of all-powerful seraphim. That's what the Walking Dead were for. The people serving Zorario directly, even Dallas, his right-hand man, were ranked only second in the hierarchy. There was a need to amass great power, the kind that couldn't be shaken by anything, and so the Walking Dead had to be reserved exclusively for the seraphim. Well, fine. We don't know how many we can summon, so there's no need to be hasty. I'll discuss this matter with Feldway later. Zorario was about to leave, but then he heard the sound of shattering glass. The cultivation tank was destroyed. Wait, god damn it. How dare you rip my arm off like that? It's you, right? I'm taking it back. With the tank put offline, Vega was awake and on the move. His target, Gnome, with Vega's cells inside of him. HNG. Grrrr. Before anyone could stop him, Vega grabbed Gnome with an arm. That was all it took for the fusion to begin. In a scant few seconds, Gnome was fully absorbed into Vega's body. Ooh. This is delicious. This power. It's coursing through me. Vega was overjoyed. Gnome contained an enormous amount of magicules, and now they were boosting his own power. Ha 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 ha. This is perfect. I could take on any of you bastards right now, ooh. But his ego trip ended when his eyes met Zorario's. I've heard about you. Which will it be? Will you be a grown man and befriend us, or will you fight right here? Vega didn't need long to decide. Heh. Sorry. Got a little carried away. I'm taking your orders, of course. It was impressively pathetic of him. Zorario expected it, so he didn't show any dismay. I thought so, was how he took it. Losing Gnome was an unfortunate event, but he had helped further strengthen Vega. In the battle to come, they didn't need a vast army, they needed a few exceptional talents. The more allies like this they had, the better it'd be for them all. Besides, Gnome had just lost his sentience, lowering his value as a useful pawn. If anything, they were better off feeding his power to Vega. It was a heartless move against someone who had served him for eons, but those were Zorario's thoughts on the subject. And if that was Zorario's will, nobody else had any complaints. Vega's bout of violence was forgiven, and they all treated him as a close friend. Cagali, watching all this, couldn't help but feel exasperated. Vega's attitude was terrible, but it was hard to understand why Zorario was willing to tolerate it so readily. He didn't act like Yuki one bit, so she had trouble guessing his thoughts. Yuki, at least, fully understood the danger Vega presented, and handled him well. But Zorario? Does he even think Vega's dangerous at all? I don't think so. Is that just how far above everyone else he is in strength? That was how Cagali saw the situation, and she was right. Zorario didn't even see Vega, as he stood now, as a threat. Those who served him were little more than slightly useful tools in his mind. But that wasn't arrogance. Zorario, after all, wasn't mistaken when he thought that. He had a knack for correctly assessing information, something far removed from arrogance. It was far too incomprehensible for Cagali to understand, though. Hey! That you, Cagali? Man, and Yuki's with ya, too, huh? The gang's all here, ain't it? Let's have some fun while we're together, eh? Vega, noticing Cagali, called out to her. There was no way she could beat him. If Tyr and Footman double-teamed him, the result would be a coin flip, and Yuki was still deprived of his free will. For now, it was best to just play along with him. Yeah, I guess so. Friends, right? We're all in a pretty different set of circumstances right now, after all. You bet. But, hey, where are we? They call it the Celestial Palace. I don't think there's any escaping from here, so we've got no choice but to obey these people. Yeah? Well, no point trying to escape. I'm sure they're gonna need my power anyways. Might as well enjoy it, huh? Cagali was jealous of how naively undeterred Vega was. Zorario didn't seem to want anything to do with Yuki, but she couldn't guess what those controlling him were after. Dead Birthday could be her ticket out of here, but she couldn't really be sure of that yet. A forbidden curse that required tens of thousands of dead bodies to work wasn't something you could organize overnight. I need to find a way to make us seem useful. I'll abase myself as much as it takes if it lets us survive. She had come this far. There was no possible way they'd abandon their hopes at this point. Right now, surrender was the name of the game. They were prepared to throw away their pride, and that resolve would soon be put to the test. Michael and Feldway were back. The center of the castle housed an audience chamber. The throne, however, was empty. No one had sat on it for a long time. Chairs were lined up across the hall, people sitting wherever they pleased. Michael was seated in the one closest to the throne, Feldway standing next to him and glaring at the rest of the audience. Dino's group was here. This was one event not even he could skip out on, and the newly born Walking Dead had also been taken inside. And that wasn't all. Obila, along with her close associate, had also been summoned on short notice. This assistant's name was Oma, and it was the only close one Obila had left after the others were killed in battle against the cryptids. As one can surmise from this, Obila was often sent over to the bloodiest, most grueling battles. The transformation to mystic beast had cost Oma both eyes, but in their place was a single eye that could perceive everything. Its mouth was also visibly stitched shut, leaving it to communicate via telepathy instead of words. It was a scary sight, but it was also a former cherub and a tested warrior who had served Obila for ages upon ages. Feldway had taken in more than just Obila and Oma. There were also insectors, foes he had fought a near-eternal war with, but now they were building an alliance. Xeranus the Insect Lord was the leader of this group. He was accompanied by his closest officers, the so-called 12 Insect Masters, although they only numbered 8 at the moment. One of the missing members was Raziel, guardian deity of the West. Under Xeranus's orders, he had invaded the Key World over 2,000 years ago, only to betray his lord and become an ally of Granville in his hero days. He was a noble, proud insector, but he met his end at the hands of Shion and Ranga. Another absent member was Minaza, an insect general sent by Xeranus to assist Emperor Ludora. He had promised Minaza half of the world as compensation, but, by cruel chance, she, too, was defeated by Shion. The remaining 2 missing members were still very young, born more recently to serve as replacements, but they were currently absent without leave. One of them was a direct descendant of Xeranus, so a top-secret search order was out for him, but he was still missing at this time. However, the 8 insect masters present were all capable of fighting on par with awakened demon lords, just as Raziel and Minaza had been. Among them was Zeth, chief insectoid general and another relation of Xeranus. His strength set him apart from the others, and he and Zorario were close rivals, often dueling each other with deadly force. The strength of the other 7 was largely equal. There was Beathop, who bore both bee and grasshopper-like traits, Mujika, who looked like a giant humanoid centipede, Tishorn, resembling a mantis, Tauren, a drone beetle-like insectoid with dragonfly-esque wings, a bolt, with spider-like limbs on his back, Sarel, a poisonous scorpion, and Period, as beautiful as an antlion. These strong figures all stood there, not bothering to sit as they showed off their strange and unusual characteristics. The audience chamber was quite large, but so oppressive were their figures that they made the space seem smaller. Kagali was in awe, but remained silent, ready to watch events unfold around her. Once everyone was assembled, the meeting with Michael began. "Thank you for coming," Feldway began. "With Ludora's disappearance, Sir Michael is now free, and we have also successfully banished Vielgrind, the first step toward resurrecting Lord Veldenava. With this, our plan is..." Zorario chose this moment to interrupt. Normally he wouldn't dare interfere with his boss like this, but it was a matter of deep urgency. "Sir Feldway, if you please, I think there are some differences in perception here." Feldway was in a festive mood, but Zorario made the smile disappear from his face. "What is it?" he asked, audibly peeved. "Vielgrind is still alive. And what's more, It is thanks to her that Cornu fell. Question mark. Even Xeranus's face twitched a bit. Feldway frowned, intensely displeased. This new obstacle in his way, the demon lord Rimuru, was proving quite irksome, but overall the plan had been going well. Guy Crimson and Rimuru Tempest would be obstacles, yes, but Veldenava's resurrection was all but imminent. Of the 3 remaining true dragons, they had obtained the factors of Vielgrind. 2 remained, but plans were underway to procure them. If Serario was telling the truth, however, it was a major snag in the project. That, and as if to confirm his words, Cornu's presence was notably absent. He could be found neither here, in the Celestial Palace, nor in the Mystic Palace. You're sure about that? Yep, it's true. Cornu's gone, and the plan's a big failure. We had no choice but to retreat and stuff. I didn't think your plan would fail like that, but I guess it's all thanks to you not delivering in the end, huh? This was Dino speaking up, not Zerario. The way he so casually shifted the blame showed just how quick-witted he could be. Zerario sat in silent agreement. He didn't appreciate Dino's opinion very much, but there was no need to outwardly deny it. He may be fair-minded and strict with himself, but he could be flexible that way. And with that reaction from both of them, Feldway had no choice but to stop doubting. This unexpected turn of events made Feldway understandably cranky. But, his mind still clear, he quickly came up with a countermeasure. The most important thing right now was to secure the true dragons. Their draconic factors were essential to revive Veldenava, so that naturally took top priority. Vielgrins was already in hand, fortunately. But while her being back in this world wasn't the worst possible outcome, it was both unexpected and very distressing. We were careless. I retrieved her skills because she was going to disappear anyway, but the override circuit vanished with her. I banished her into the far reaches of space, so she'd never bother us even if she was revived, but now I have another headache of an enemy to deal with. Vielgrind, at the time, had lost most of her power and her draconic factors as well. She was on the verge of vanishing, and that was why Michael took Ragwell, Lord of Relief, from her. There was no way he could have predicted that it would lead directly to Cornu's destruction. Well, so be it. As long as Veldenava is revived, the rest doesn't matter. Vielgrind can be left alone. Let's add Velzad to our side first. This time, he'd be careful not to let her disappear. He'd make her a full-fledged ally, leaving her with some degree of free will. It'd be a good countermeasure against Vielgrind, and it could be useful for capturing Veldora, too. But once Velzad was in their ranks, what next? They had planned to go for Veldora at once, but they may need to rethink this. If even Vielgrind is against us, do we need to shore up our fighting strength? I thought we could get by with just me and Michael, but we can never be too careful. Dino had just told him he failed to execute in the very end. So Feldway decided to make some major changes to his initial plan. In that case, said Feldway, I think we will need to take immediate action. For starters, let's take in Velzad. Instead of banishing her to the far reaches of space, why don't we recruit her as an ally and make use of her that way? Michael nodded in agreement. It is the only way to go. If we eliminate as many uncertainties as possible and conduct the final ceremony once the 3 true dragons are taken in, that would put us on much more solid footing. Velzad had received the ultimate skill Gabriel, Lord of Endurance, from Veldenava, which meant her override circuit was still active. It'd be possible to add her to their side in a completely safe and secure manner. The problem was what came next. Michael eyed the audience, appraising them. I did not think it was necessary at first, but we'll need to provide physical bodies for everyone. Do that, and we will be able to handle anything that arises. Good point. Let's put Veldora on the back burner and finish up as much prep work as we can, then. Feldway and Michael had reached their conclusion. Zerario, sensing this, continued his report. I have one other thing to say about that. And that is, our attempts at using Vega over there to create body vessels has ended in failure. The only sure way we have of creating vessels is via the walking dead. So we have 9, then? It'll be difficult to decide who gets them. Xeranas spoke up as Feldway pondered over this. You may do whatever you like with those walking dead. We have no need of them. In times of need, insectors could create a new body by coagulating the magicules inside of them. That was what enabled them to travel to other worlds. Having spare bodies would be nice, but it wasn't essential for them. Such had been the case with Minaza. She had assumed a physical form after taking in matter from the other world, but the insect creatures she summoned shared her same properties. Actually crossing into another world was extremely difficult, but once someone like Minaza pulled off a successful jump, they were fully able to exercise their vast and powerful abilities at their destination. The world-crossing problem had already been solved for this project. It was only natural for Xeranas to give up his right to the walking dead. Zorario and Abila of the 3 mystic leaders are givens, then. Shall we fill the remaining 7 slots with our other top leaders? I have something to say about that. You may speak freely. Thank you. It was times like these when Dino marveled at how serious-minded Zorario was. Unlike us primordials, Zorario began, those at the cherub level or below are too weak-willed. They were able to fight up to now through sheer willpower, but in the war ahead, I fear we cannot expect them to contribute very much to our offense. So what do you suggest? Well, why don't we leave their struggle for survival in the hands of nature, I say? Zorario had basically given up on his entire staff. The same was true for Cornu's team, the group that had their minds taken over by humans in the world they invaded. Now people were being influenced by Vega's cells, of all things, to go on insane rampages. Offering such a precious vessel to people like that wouldn't make them of much use in the battles ahead. We still have many obstacles in our way. Veelgrind, Veldora, and the demon lords are all alive and well. Even those damned demons will be a nuisance. In the face of these threats, sending in mere tools who do nothing more than follow orders is worthless. Yes. Feldway nodded at Zorario's hypothesis. He had the same deep-seated concerns. Yes. What matters the most is the strength of someone's will. Without that kind of burning desire, it's meaningless to give anyone an ultimate skill. Conversely, on the other hand, no matter how strong someone's sense of self was, giving them the ultimate enchantment alternative would ensure against betrayal for good. Feldway looked at Michael. Their eyes met. Apparently he had other opinions. Is something on your mind? Well, I was thinking I might call forth my seraphim with Armageddon once it was ready, then have them possess the bodies. That works as well, but we don't know how many angels will be called or what kind of will they'll possess, do we? There would be 7 at the most. But we will not know what kind of will these seraphim have until they are summoned. If the walking dead were to be possessed by seraphim, that alone would likely make them more powerful than an awakened demon lord. But, again, their strength of will was a sticking point. It took many years for the people in this room to firmly establish their own wills, so trying to put a force together too quickly was pointless, such was Feldway's outlook. Interesting, Xeranas said. If you think there will be too many of these seraphim, I or my children could always eat them up for you. Feldway thought about it. They were in an alliance with the insectors now, but only because they shared a common interest. Once either side achieved their objectives, chances were good that they'd return to being enemies. Allowing such an untrusted partner to strengthen themselves gave Feldway pause, but if they wanted to destroy this world, it seemed like an effective strategy. Let's hold off on that for now, he advised. We can think about it when the opportunity arises. Very well. I will not force the issue, said Xeranas. That was enough about seraphim. They returned to the question of whom to put in their vessels. In that case, we should reserve these vessels for Zorario and the others. That sounds good to me. Feldway's right when he says that it would eliminate any uncertainty. I have no objections, Xeranas added. Both sides were in agreement. We'll adopt Zorario's proposal, then. Is that all right with you? Feldway posed the question to his own staff. He phrased it as a question, but the decision was already made. Anyone who objected would be branded as too timid, so Darlis and his colleagues had no right to argue with it. So it was settled. Zorario and the others would possess the walking dead, and, at the same time, release the wills that resided in those bodies. Once that was decided, it was time to begin the incarnation ceremony. Zorario and 5 members of his staff would receive bodies, along with Abila and Oma. The process of installing these egos into the walking dead would be handled by Cagali. There's one extra, then? What are they going to do with that? Just when Cagali was wondering this, her eyes met Feldway's. Cagali, right? You must be released from your thrall now that Kondo is dead, but what are your plans going forward? Here we go, she thought, tensing up. Do you think you could let me go? She cautiously asked, unsure how much she'd be allowed to say. The response was beyond unexpected. Certainly. Once this ceremony is over, I don't mind at all. Huh? Really, your job was done once you crafted the walking dead who'll serve as our vessels. You've contributed more than enough to the cause, so if that's what you want, I could return you to the surface. You're kidding. Cagali was confused. At best, she expected to be locked up for life, at worst, she expected a swift execution. But now she was being let go? Feldway didn't seem like he was lying, and lying about this would just lead to pointless trouble for him. Clearly, Cagali was useless otherwise, she lacked the power to do anything else. She saw no reason why he would try to trick her otherwise, so she concluded that Feldway must be telling the truth. With that in mind, she stepped further onto thin ice. And do you think it's possible to release the rule over Sayuki and release him along with me? Michael stepped up to answer. That I cannot permit. The ultimate skill Mammon, Lord of Greed, as possessed by Yuki Kagurazuka, is extremely valuable to me. To Michael, Yuki's fighting ability didn't matter as much as that skill. The idea of releasing him was dead in the water. Cagali, understanding that, decided to stop wishing for more. So what'll I do? Is running the right choice? If it's just you and those two, Feldway said, I'd gladly take you down there. However, I'm sure the key world is in a state of chaos right now. I have a deep-seated hatred for everybody on that planet, you see. And I don't need the death of all living things to achieve my goal, but I'm sure the flames will burn high and hot as we fight against those who defy us. But that is just the punishment of the gods. Those who Lady Veldenava loved are now betraying that love. They need to pay the price. It sounded so matter-of-fact, but it sent shivers down Cagali's spine. When he talked about flames burning high, he meant that the ravages of war would spread across the entire world. Even if she fled there, would it be safe at all? It didn't seem so. Yuki was still in their grasp, and if all the utter powerhouses here went on the rampage, there would be no safe sanctuary left on the planet. We just wanted to create a world where we could be happy. But given how things are, hoping for something like that would just be in vain. The important thing right now is to survive, and to do that, I need power. It may have been a foolish decision. But it seemed like the only correct answer to Cagali at the time. So she made the wish. Please give me one of the walking dead. And, if you don't mind, please give me permission to house a seraphim in my body. She wanted to leave her fragile body behind and be reborn as a walking dead. That, plus the seraphim, would give her the kind of strength she wanted. The strength she needed. As long as she had that, nothing more would be taken from her. Her words had no chance of convincing anyone, and yet, nobody refuted them. Dino looked dumbfounded but said nothing. Zorario and Obila would obey whatever Michael decided, and the insectors didn't care either way, they had no interest in the weak. As all these sides reacted to her, Michael nodded. Interesting. But I will not tolerate betrayal. Accept my ultimate enchantment, and I will grant your wish. I swear that I will not betray you. And I accept your dominion over me. So the contract was sealed. Installing self-awareness in the Walking Dead is akin to waking up their original personality. In some cases, the strongest will prevails, in others, they form a mixture and create a wholly new ego. Not even Cagali could say how it would turn out. As Tyr and Footman demonstrated, it's very hard to aim for any particular personality. Would Cagali's ego triumph over the one in that body? It was a crapshoot, even for her. But she was still resolved to gain that power for herself. So, after awakening these 8 bodies, she conducted the same ritual on the one she would occupy, and with that, she transferred herself from her artificial body to the Walking Dead. So the ritual was completed. And the results? Zorario woke up. Realizing he was surrounded by the armor of actual flesh, he could feel how great a force he'd be able to wield in the key world. Obila woke up. She prided herself on her noble will, completely impervious to any challenge, and she had just proved it. When Dalis was just about to awaken, he realized that another personality resided within him. His name was Tornuot, and he was a man of ambition, apparently. Dalis could sense that this man's warrior skills were becoming his own, and he was sure it would make him far more of a presence than before. Nis woke up. She was stronger now, as ordered, but nothing had changed personally for her. Her strong sense of self was alive and well. Oma woke up. Its indomitable will was intact, but now it had internalized a being with similar sensibilities. The name of this being was Zero, it seemed, but now it was Oma's flesh and blood. Orca and Alia woke up. Alia's had a wizard's knowledge, Orca that of a warrior, and with both egos coexisting in the same body, they were reborn as a magical warrior. There was not a shred of the ego of Son, Zorario's servant, left in that body. Arius woke up. His unique skill murderer was still there. He never forgot his grudge against Damrada for killing him, and now he had resurrected himself, seeking even more strength. Myfoki woke up. There was no way she could die. In the other world, the one she used to live in, not this one, she left behind a sickly younger brother. She swore to herself that she'd come home for him someday. The 8 of them had awoken. One was left, but she was still in a deep sleep. Cagali had a dream. One that brought back old, cherished memories. From back when she was the demon Lord Kazalim? No. It was of a much, much older time, back when she was still a little girl. She could no longer remember the name she went by at that time, but she was a happy young princess. The nation her family ruled was founded on the site where the High Humans had once built their great civilization. A large river flowed through it, the forest grew thick, and fertile plains spread all the way to the horizon, making it a natural utopia. This bounty, along with the ruins of the ancient, highly advanced empire of magic that once existed there, made this country into a superpower of its own, a paradise for the elven race. But all too suddenly, her father, the king, went mad. Cagali remembered him as an extraordinarily kind and gentle ruler, praised and lauded as the wise king of the High Elves, but one day, he suddenly transformed into someone different. He changed his own name, calling himself the sorceress Dinas Jahil. Her memories were not as clear after that. Jahil proved to be a brutal despot, exploiting his people and thinking about nothing but his own prosperity. He conducted a number of vast, failed experiments, creating all sorts of nightmares for his people. Cagali was one of his victims. Born a high elf, she was stripped of her powers, killed, then resurrected as a walking dead. All she was left with was a hideous appearance and the name Kazalim. Her beautiful looks were gone, and now she was doomed to be a cursed figure her whole life. Rotting flesh covered her bones. It was dry, at least, and therefore didn't stink of the dead. Few people knew Cagali's secret. She was so saddened by it that she began to hide herself behind a mask. "Why are you doing this to me?" "Gay hair. Because it's fun." "Why, you should be rejoicing. Tens of thousands of our people had to die to bring you back to life." "Ha ha ha ha." It was a nightmare. Her father was so kind to her once, why did he turn into such a ghoul? But this was her reality, and there was no point lamenting over it. "Father, I don't care what you do to me. but at least spare a thought for your citizens, as you did in the past. Silence. Are you here to mock me as well? I knew having a daughter would do me no good. I will not make the same foolish mistake he did. I have instilled a sense of loyalty to me inside of you, but you still cannot be trusted. Kazalim, from now on, you will live as a man, do you understand? It was an absolute order. Kagali's pleas had no chance of reaching Jahil's ears. Everything was decided for her. At least she wasn't killed, or, really, the fact she had already been killed and turned into a faithful puppet meant that she was too useful a tool to be discarded. At that moment, Kagali internally said her goodbyes to the father inside her mind. So the nightmare continued. The glory of the arrogant Emperor Jahil seemed like it would never end, but then the day came. He had committed the ultimate sin, antagonizing the dragon princess Milan, hoping to make her into a puppet as well. Soma, the capital of this superpower, was reduced to ruins overnight, and Jahil himself was never found. He was presumed dead, since it didn't seem that anyone could possibly survive that flash of lethal light. Instead of dwelling on him, Kagali's mind turned toward those more important to her. The kind female attendants who always watched over her. The knights who accompanied her after she became a warrior. The people she loved, living out their happy lives. Thinking of all those she loved, she invoked a forbidden spell. She had learned the theory behind dead birthday thanks to becoming one of its test subjects. Thus, she had no problem completing the spell, and this was how Tyr, Footman, and Clayman were born. They were an adorable set of children, and Kagali named them herself. Then she learned a fact she preferred not knowing. Walking dead that were born via dead birthday were not inherently doomed to be ugly. Only Kagali had been made that way, on purpose. Jahil, her hated father, had taken away her beauty for the sole purpose of making her suffer. But it was far too late to do anything. Kagali's appearance was the result of a curse, and there was no way to reverse it. But the children Kagali created did not leave her alone to suffer. They, too, hid their true faces behind masks, sharing in her suffering. I'm not alone, she thought, and that planted within her an earnest hope for survival. And before long, Kagali's 4-member family was joined by the elves that managed to survive the attack. We can bring this country of ours back to what it was. And we'll make it into a land where everyone can keep a smile on their face. That was the wish Kagali secretly resolved to have come true. But it turned out to be a faint, fleeting dream. The land was attacked by a chaos dragon, one that contaminated it for good, and Kagali's followers were all cursed and transformed into dark elves. Kagali took this opportunity to act like she, too, had been cursed. She and her children were walking dead, making them impervious to any such curse, but she lamented, over and over, about how she was different from everyone else. Hiding her face with a mask was a blessing to her along those lines, ensuring nobody noticed the difference, but it only served to make her sadder. Having Tyr and the others around was a great relief to her. After that, she and her family abandoned their homeland and fled. Their followers joined them, leaving all their unfulfilled memories behind. They all spent a long period wandering the land before finally discovering their next safe haven. Once life had settled down for everyone, Kagali decided to visit her homeland again. She needed to recover the assorted treasures that were left behind, but most of all, she just wanted to see the land for herself once more. The city may be in ruins, but in her memories, it was still shining as beautifully as always. She felt a clean break from the past was necessary, something she could make use of for the future. So Kagali set off. When she reached her destination, she came across a man lying on the ground. "Oh, it's you, huh? If you were watching over this land, you coulda lifted a finger to help me, couldn't ya? Don't be ridiculous. How could I ever defend us against that evil dragon? Ah, you're being too modest. From my point of view, you're just as much of a menace, but... Ow." The man's name was Thalion Grimwald, the hero who finally chased the Chaos Dragon away from this land. Unfortunately, his fight against this dragon had brought him to the brink of death. "Take it easy. I'll cast some healing magic. Don't waste your breath. The Chaos Dragon's attacks are all cursed, My wounds ain't never gonna heal. I had a few healing tricks up my sleeve, too, but, you see how well they worked. Thalion's body had in fact been blown off from the chest down. It was a wonder he was still alive. But he still had the wherewithal to laugh about it, making the strength of his spirit clear for the world to see. I got a message for you. Tell everyone that I beat the Chaos Dragon here. I died in style, the way a hero needs to. Hare. What do you mean by that? Here. Before you die, I have a proposal for you. There's a chance I'll be able to use my evil magic to give you another lease on life. It may cost you your memory, you may very well end up like me, in fact, but are you interested in giving it a try? Cagali took off her mask as she spoke, revealing her ugliness for the hero to behold. But Thalion just gave that visage a half-smile. Well, look at you, huh? You got some nice aspects to ya, after all. Sylvia would kill me if I died in a place like this. An offer like yours, well, how can I say no to that, eh? Are you sure? I'm a cursed man. And if I'm going to be persecuted either way, I'll choose evil over good any day. If you became a hero to protect everyone, well, I'll become a demon lord to do that, all right? That's what I'm ready to do. And you realize this evil magic will also make you my puppet, don't you? Or, it's fine, it's fine. It'll be fun. I'm a free spirit, you know? You ain't gonna control me that easily. Besides, heroes and demon lords are always fated to get intertwined with each other and all that. That's probably why we ran into each other, huh? Hare. All this nonsense, in your condition. You're a real strange one. Well, all right, then. Be my puppet, for all I care. So the negotiations were concluded. Cagali took Thalion's words as a joke, but he was telling the truth. And as a result of her passing whim, Thalion became a walking dead, surviving this ordeal. And that was the moment when both Kazalin the Curse Lord and Laplace the Wonder Jester were born. A lot of other things happened afterward. Cagali secured a domain, fighting fierce battles with assorted human and demi-human races, but, overcoming all the persecution, Kazalin the Curse Lord rose to prominence. Recognized as a demon lord, she began to steadily expand her powers, and along the way, she backed Carillion the Beast Master and Frey the Sky Queen's entry to the Demon Lord class, establishing a powerful alliance with them both. Everything couldn't have gone better. It went too well, in fact. So much so that she was completely unaware of the conceited pride growing in her heart. Cagali's next target was an up-and-coming figure by the name of Leon, governing over some rural backwater and claiming to be a demon lord. He needed to be taught a lesson about where he stood, and Cagali also wanted to bring him under her wing. The first time she caught sight of him, Cagali grew jealous. This man, calling himself a demon lord, was beyond beautiful. Thanks to being disfigured by her demonic father, Cagali had struggled every day of her life, robbed of even her gender, but here was Leon, a man more beautiful than any woman. The sight dulled her thoughts, and then she made the mistake of overestimating her abilities. With a single strike from Leon, Cagali's physical body was lost. She was forced to stalk the land with only her spiritual body once more. It was a miracle that she didn't just fade away. She had her grudges, but more than that was a single wish, one that helped her cling to life. Using what little of her Curse Lord power remained, she patiently took the time to prepare her own resurrection. In a daze, she completed her final summoning, but failed to occupy the one she summoned. Her plan failed, and no physical body would be hers. All that remained was to perish for good. Help me. You have to help me. I don't want anything else taken from me. All I wanted was to live happily with my friends. Why am I the only one who has to go through this? She begged for help, wailing about her misfortune, but nobody reached out to help her. She wasn't alone, but still no one would lend a hand. It had been an arduous path to walk. Her ideals seemed to be far, far away now, even as Cagali was obliged to be a leader for everyone. She wasn't allowed to whine about her lot in life, instead, she constantly had to keep her head pointed forward. So Cagali had given up hope that she would ever be saved. All she could trust were herself and the companions she loved. That's how she had lived her life. But that boy, Yuki Kagurazuka. All right, sure. You look pretty tired, so just rest inside me for now. Kagali, this monster nobody wanted to save, had tried to take his life a moment ago. But now he was reaching out to her. A few years later, Kagali was still resting inside Yuki, providing him counsel and advice. Her unique skill schema still worked even in her current soul form, fortunately, but she nonetheless had to deal with a lot of fearsome opponents. Maribel Rotso, in particular, was a major headache. Yuki was a genius strategist, and Kagali was confident enough about her own ingenuity, but despite the two of them conspiring together, outwitting Maribel proved extremely difficult. They were outmatched in every possible way, from finances to human resources. They had obtained an organization that allowed them to be free, but it was Maribel who had the final say over whether they'd be free at all. I gotta kill her. I have to do it sometime, or our plan will never go anywhere. That's for sure. That devil of a girl's the biggest obstacle we have. An economic battle cannot be won off one's pure fighting ability. And Maribel was still a young girl. If she grew to adulthood, they wouldn't be able to compete with her in any aspect at all. A few years after Kagali and Yuki resolved themselves to this, the times began to change. It wasn't caused by the birth of the demon lord Rimuru, that weird slime, but by Kagali obtaining an artificial body. Yuki had kept his promise all along. And what's more, this is how I originally looked. Yuki's kindness made her want to cry tears of joy, but Kagali kept it cool on the outside. She tried to maintain the manly speaking voice she had nurtured, but Laplace stopped her. He was teasing her about it, but deep down, he was concerned for her. I appreciate this, boss, she said, and she sincerely meant it. With her new physical body, Kagali was excited to get a few good meals, plus dessert, in her. The cream puffs, in particular, were just exquisite. Laughing with her friends, enjoying fun times together, how happy could she be? But the happiness didn't last long. Clayman died, and both Kagali and her colleagues realized that once again, a valued friend had been taken from them. They had to conquer the world, for the sake of their own happiness. And once they ruled the world, they'd lead it the right way. Clayman, you were so foolish, so arrogant, and so charming. I'm sorry you had to go through all of that. Rest well now and watch over us. We'll make our ambitions come true, I promise you. Kagali wasn't on the side of good, but her faction wasn't evil, either. They were moderate. And that's why she thought she could create a world that provided happiness for everyone. Trusting in this fact, she continued on. When they defeated Maribel, Kagali's true identity was revealed by the demon lord Rimuru. She fled to the Empire, and then her mind was taken over by Lieutenant Kondo. It was enough to break Kagali's heart, but she couldn't afford to give up now. I swear that I will not betray you. And I accept your dominion over me. It was a contract, and it had to be followed. She received a great favor, and now it had to be repaid. And Kagali was willing to do whatever it took. And so she, too, woke up. She had abandoned her fragile, artificial homunculus body and gained one of the Walking Dead's vessels, making her stronger and far more beautiful than her days as the demon lord Kazalim. Thus all 9 of the Walking Dead were reborn. But these were only the first few steps. When Kagali finally awoke, the last of her peers to do so, the first thing she saw was Feldway leading the group that was bringing back Velzard. Michael had already taken Velzard's draconic factors from her, hoping to use them for further evolution, but before that, he invoked Armageddon in order to implant the resulting seraphim in Kagali and the others. She could sense the strength of Michael's will. He was completely unwilling to make any compromises. 7 seraphim had been successfully summoned. They'd be installed in those Walking Dead who weren't from angels to start with, and Kagali was naturally part of them. She, Tyr, Footman, Vega, Orca/Alia, Arius, and Myfoki would each receive one. Extraordinary powers struggled against each other within their bodies, remodeling the vessels as they did. All of them, with the exception of Vega, were reborn once more as mystic angels. and by the time this had happened, 5 months had passed since Cagali first arrived at the Celestial Palace. At the audience chamber of this vast castle above the heavens, lined with pillars of chalky white, the very air seemed to be filled with the divine spirit. The space was filled with angels, each bearing wings of pure white. They had yet to gain physical bodies, but they still couldn't wait to invade the planetary surface. Lacking their own will, they were motionless as statues, their presence giving the chamber a solemn feel. There was a circle of chairs up front, with those who existed above these angels, all the reborn, Cagali included, sitting on them. Having gained far more power than before, the aura they exuded was amplified up to even greater levels. They had been called here because Michael was about to awaken. He was still asleep when Cagali woke up with a seraphim in her body, but his continued absence told the audience that things were apparently behind schedule. Cagali, with nothing else better to do, turned her attention to the angels behind her. The way it was explained to her, the only limit to what you could summon at once was the total amount of energy you could expend on it. Summoning an army 1,000,000 strong was the normal custom, but after calling forth 7 seraphim at once, they couldn't expect this kind of quantity. Still, the quality was impressive. All the low-level rabble of Angel Dom had been eliminated, and this force consisted entirely of the middle and upper classes. There were around 1,000 Dominion Angels, 3,000 Virtue class, and 6,000 power types. Not having physical bodies, they couldn't tap into their full strength, but despite that, even the powers enjoyed combatability on an over A rank. They could remain active for just 7 days, but that was more than enough to turn the world into a wasteland. But the demon lords could probably handle them, couldn't they? That was Cagali's impression. This won't be enough, will it? If this is all we have, it'll be hard to defeat even a single one of the forces opposing us. Cagali's under her breath muttering still echoed in this quiet hall. She didn't expect an answer, but she was surprised to hear one. Yeah, well, I didn't have anyone serving me, but all the other demon lords have a whole bunch of strong guys, you know. Honestly, I dunno if we could take down even a single member of the Octagram. Cagali looked at her sudden conversational partner. Well, I never thought I'd agree with you about something, Dino. But... Her voice went to a whisper. You know, I had no idea you worked for Sir Feldway until now. Like I could have told you, he flatly responded. I'm a monitor, you realize. I'm supposed to hide my true identity and be as inconspicuous as possible. And let me set one other thing straight, I'm former friends with Feldway. I don't work for him. Dino's monitor duties had driven him to even infiltrate the Octagram. The reason? So he could keep an eye on things in their world. He, Pico, and Gasha, the 3 fallen angels, were on a special mission to investigate the world of man. They were tasked with monitoring the human race so it would never be destroyed by the will of Veldenava. If mankind grew too strong, it was the job of the demon lords, led by Guy, to put them back in their place. The heroes, meanwhile, served as a deterrent to keep the demon lords from getting carried away, and it was Dino and his team's job to ensure the fated relationship between demon lords and heroes was working correctly. With Dino taking a prominent, attention-grabbing position as demon lord, Pico and Gasha were busily conducting their investigations while staying out of the public eye. Dino also had another, hidden role, to conceal the other two's presence, so it'd be easier for them to move around. Now that Veldenava was gone and unresurrected, though, they had nobody to report to. So Dino was just chilling out, enjoying life as a demon lord and talking about stuff like this openly, with no intention of hiding it at all. Cagali wondered why he was even here, and it must have been obvious from her facial expression, because Gasha gave her a little laugh. This guy, you know. He kinda owes a lot to Feldway. If it's him asking, Dino just can't say no. But at this point, Pico added, he says that he can't go back to the demon lord Raimuru. So he decided to serve Sir Michael instead. Yeah, pretty much, Dino agreed with a nod. Cagali couldn't believe it. Would that be the only reason he was serving Michael? She doubted it, but this whole story seemed so ridiculously Dino-like, it was almost convincing. So, she said, Moving on, what was the demon Lord Rimuru like? Because I still resent him for killing Clayman, and I'd like to get some revenge if I get the chance. This was a lie. She didn't have any hate at all for Rimuru. Certainly, he was a foe who figured large in her life, but he had just formed an alliance with Yuki, and even if that were dissolved, Rimuru piqued her interest a great deal. If she should hate anyone over Clayman's death, it should be Lieutenant Kondo for manipulating him, and by extension, Michael for controlling Kondo. She could understand that well enough, but she wasn't foolish enough to say it out loud. He's a menace, Dino said, not pursuing the previous subject, and so is everyone in his government. Especially that Zijin guy. Dino's role in the previous operation, apparently, was to neutralize the forces within the labyrinth. To be exact, he was asked to either kidnap or eliminate Ramirez. He was one step away from completing that mission, or that's what he claims, at least, but either way, he failed. Why? Because, he said, he was stopped by an unstoppably powerful magic-born named Zijin. He's that strong? Oh, strong doesn't even begin to describe it. Like, seriously, it's not even funny. He's rumored to be the best in the 10 dungeon marvels, and I can tell you that he's stronger than me, at least. He had just finished up a series of fights, and Dino admitted that he maybe looked down on him a little, but Zijin made him look like a fool without even really trying. The way he put it, he couldn't even feel like a sore loser about it, that was how thorough his beating was. Of all the wimpy things to say. Well, don't worry, I'm gonna crush that bastard. Sounds like he deserves a good beating. Vega was already in a bragging mood. Must be nice to be such an idiot, thought Dino, although he refrained from saying it. It was pointless anyway. Vega never changes, does he? Now I'm not sure we'll have any effective use for his new powers. Kigali let out a sigh as well. Confidence in your own strength was all well and good, but if it cost you the battle sense you needed the most, it wouldn't do you any good. Sense here meant the ability to gauge the difference in strength between two sides. Going up against someone you can't beat, after all, will do nothing but hurt your side. Pico and Gasha, apparently understanding this, frowned. They only said nothing, in all likelihood, because they weren't friendly with Vega and thus figured any warning they'd give would be ignored. But just when everyone thought this conversation was over. Either way, if you guys notice any insectors inside the labyrinth, watch the hell out, got it? Zijin's a beetle type, but they got this bee girl named Apito who's real dangerous, too. Dino meant that as a way of wrapping up this topic. But it caught Xeranus's attention. A beetle type and a bee type? Tell me more. Suddenly Dino found himself overwhelmed by Xeranus's sheer vigor. Before he could think about it, he divulged everything else he knew about them, although it wasn't very much. Oh? Well, if I recall, I think Rimuru's been giving them shelter since before he became a demon lord. Xeranus listened silently. And when Dino was done talking, an awkward silence drifted over the chamber. Dude, give me some kind of reaction. Dino begged internally. But Xeranus was beyond intimidating. He didn't want to call him out over it, though, so he had no choice but to change the subject and keep talking. But anyway, inside Ramirez's labyrinth, the defenders have a huge advantage. There's a group of really strong guardians in there, Zijin leading them, and taking them down's gonna be a huge challenge, trust me. With that, Dino was done talking. As silence reigned once more, everyone gathered in the chamber were caught up in their own thoughts. Kigali had a wide range of topics she had to think about. Dino's guidance was pretty important, but for now, the first priority was getting to grips with her own changes. As she searched for information and checked over her own body, she could feel a tremendous power welling up within her. A seraphim is the highest level of angel, allegedly comparable to an awakened demon lord. After taking on the power of one of them and becoming a mystic angel, Kigali was now so strong that the memories of her demon lord days just embarrassed her now. What's more, in addition to her unique skill schema, she discovered a new skill embedded in her soul. This was the ultimate enchantment Melchizedek, Lord of Dominion, one earned by Michael separating his domination skills off and granting her a piece. A fearsome skill, it allowed her to instantly analyze any other skill and place it under her control. However, Cagali herself was placed under control of this skill, which made it impossible for her to betray Michael. It's just terrifying. A war between people with these kinds of powers. It's unimaginable for someone like me. That's how she felt about it, but when it was time to fight, Cagali's body would no doubt slaughter the enemy on its own, no input required from her. She instinctively understood this, and seeing this change in herself made her shiver. But she also couldn't help but think, too, that she wanted to test out this immense power she gained. She knew she shouldn't think about it, but something inside of her was wishing for that so badly. And she also predicted that she'd have a chance very, very soon. She thought her desire for revenge was gone. But now she was growing resentful of Leon for killing her and of Rimuru for killing Clayman. And perhaps she could beat them now. She knew it was pointless, but she couldn't stop that desire from bubbling up. Am I really weaker than Dino right now? No. I just can't see it that way. In fact, now that she was a mystic angel, Cagali was on the same tier as Dino. Hair. And what an embarrassing sight Dino is. You know, even back in my Demon Lord days, I never did see Dino fight anyone. No wonder he's so weak. She had a hard time suppressing the pleasant, joyful feelings coming up from the bottom of her heart. She knew she couldn't let her guard down against these foes. But even so, even if this opponent played Dino like a fiddle, she thought she could win. She had gone well past an awakened Demon Lord, after all. Even the older Demon Lords, like Luminous and Dino, couldn't beat Cagali today. And if not, maybe even the Demon Lord Leon wouldn't be a challenge. You just wait for me, Leon. You'll be the one crying next, so she kept thinking, attempting to suppress those dark feelings of pleasure as she did. The skill controlling her mind was now radicalizing her thoughts, but she never noticed it happening. Vega wasn't thinking about anything. He was just waiting for orders. He had gained power. He had experienced death many times, giving him a look into the yet deeper abysses of the world. He had consumed Gradim, and his own weapon had taken in the god-class Azure Dragon Spear. He had even feasted upon a seraphim, taking its power for his own. All the countless defeats he'd tasted had granted him more power. He was the very personification of explosive force. That's what he was, a being created and transformed by Yuki, infused with various skills that fused and complemented each other to help him become the ultimate fighting creature. His unique skill Scavenger had now evolved into the ultimate skill Azdahak, Lord of Dark Dragons, one with such destructive power that it literally overwhelmed all other existing skills. It was a disaster for the world that Vega, who never thought to temper any of his powers, was granted something like this. Or maybe the opposite was true. Maybe he only obtained this skill because of his constant, thoughtless drive to master the ways of pure force. But regardless, Vega waited. He waited for the orders to come. And all he'd have to do was annihilate, then consume, those who stood before him. Dino stared at the floor, thinking about his current situation. Why did it turn out like this? He asked himself multiple times, but he never seemed to reach an answer. Long ago, Veldinava asked him to take on this role, and so he descended to the surface. He didn't think he had much in the way of sentience at the time, but somewhere along the line, he started thinking about things for himself. He asked his colleagues Pico and Gaisha about it, but it sounded like they had developed self-awareness at about the same time. For various reasons, the three of them had become fallen angels. The only purpose in their lives had been to obey the orders of their vanished lord, and Dino had become a demon lord to comply with that. He continued to watch over the world, and he wanted to see how the game between Guy and Ludora would turn out, although he'd never dream of intervening. Through all this, Dino's loyalty to Veldinava was unwavering. He still believed that someday, at the end of time, he'd be able to return to him. And then he met him, that weird slime. A single glance was all he needed to understand the blinding brightness of his soul. It was totally different from Veldinava's, but somehow it felt familiar to him. So began a happy period of his life. He hated working so much, but getting used and abused by humans all day was satisfying for him. He could hardly believe it himself, but somehow he felt contentment with this life. It was all thanks to the colleagues he was working with. And I just had to double-cross Ramirez anyway. That's what he regretted the most, the attack that took place 5 months earlier. On Feldway's orders, he betrayed Rimuru people and invited the enemy right into their labyrinth. As if that wasn't enough, he'd also attempted to capture Ramirez, the enemy's most vital target. The order said to kill her if capture wasn't possible, but Dino had no intention of that, not kill, at least. Instead he'd seal her in a deep hypno state and make it look like she was dead. But, fortunately or not, the plan failed. And now Dino found it strange he'd ever tried it in the first place. Nah, but that just proves he was telling the truth, doesn't it? Dino couldn't help but think so. He didn't want to make excuses for attempting to harm Ramirez, but he was fully sure he was being driven by Michael's control over him. So as long as I have the skill Astarte, I have no way of defying Michael and Feldway? You gotta be kidding. He thought he had an accurate grasp of the situation, but he couldn't think up any brilliant ways out of it. The only saving grace he had was that Rimuru still trusted him. He acts all shrewd and calculating, but he's really a big softy. You'd think you could trick him easily, but really, you gotta keep your guard up around him, too. Dino looked at the blue butterfly-shaped mark on his right arm. He thought that Zijin had let him off the hook, but apparently this mark had become a corridor that connected the two of them, heart and soul. That's how Rimuru was able to contact him. See? Totally calculating. Now Rimuru was speaking directly into his mind, taking all the information he could get from Dino. All but forcing him to spy on the enemy with impunity. He didn't feel disgusted about it or anything, in fact, he got a strange sort of thrill from the work. Maybe he was oddly happy to receive Rimuru's trust. Here we go again. Dino suddenly realized that, for the first time in a while, he felt pretty amused about all this. This sure has turned into a big deal, he thought. He had no intention whatsoever of betraying Veldenava, his creator. As long as Veldenava's revival remained Michael and Feldway's goal, he felt it was his duty to help with that. But, deep down, he couldn't help but feel that this was turning into a lot more trouble than it was worth. Well, whatever. I'm not that much use around here regardless. I mean, the more serious I am about my work, the weaker I get. Not much I can do about it now. It'll be better for everybody if I half-ass my work anyway, so what more could I ask for? That was one good trait of Dino's. If a problem presented itself, he could accept it and not dwell on it forever. There was an easygoing, positive solution for everything when it came to Dino, who was unrivaled when it came to slacking off. That positivity was something terrifying about him, really. Regardless, he now felt quite refreshed as he waited for Feldway and the others, a relieved look on his face. Arius was thinking. His bosses, Kagali and the others, were talking, but he had no idea what they were talking about. His temperament would normally make him complain about that, but his instincts told him that wasn't a good idea. Of course it wasn't. Arius was under Kagali's full control. He had become a mystic angel, a figure well above the walking dead, but his locking curse was still in effect. If he awakened under his own power, it'd be a different story. But since this evolution was wholly set up for him, it only served to strengthen the dominance over him. Arius had no time to be annoyed by this. He was aware enough of his current situation. He was brimming with unbelievable power, the omnipotence at his fingertips elated him. And the biggest change of all was the evolution of his unique skill Murderer into the ultimate enchantment Sandalphone, Lord of Judgment. Michael had retrieved this skill from Kondo and ferried it right over to Arius, consuming Murderer in the process. It was nothing Arius had any say in, but he wasn't dissatisfied at all. And as he waited to be called up, he honestly felt pleased to have this new power. Orca/Alia was confused. They had no time to eavesdrop on the conversations around them, because they were having a heated one inside their own body. Who am I? Am I Alia? Or Orca? I don't know. I'm Alia, but also Orca at the same time. In this rather chaotic way, they could feel their consciousnesses unify into one. But it wasn't unpleasant to them. In fact, it felt quite nice. I am Aulia. Then the answer came to her. Aulia was a newborn, but already a first-rate warrior and magic user in one. What's more, Alternative, the skill granted to her, had optimized itself within Aulia's body, transforming into the ultimate enchantment multi-weapon. This enabled her to create a variety of weapons by using the experiences accumulated within her own body. There were only so many she could bring out at the same time, but each one of them was equivalent to God class. With all these weapons at her disposal, there wasn't an enemy out there she was afraid to fight. My foe was in despair. She thought she was dead, but here she was, back to life. That was fine, but the problem was that even now, with all this power in her hands, she still hadn't fulfilled her wish to return to Japan. I won't give up. My unique skill Drifter couldn't cut it, but Yuki still said it was possible. And if skills get created from your wishes, I know I've got the power to make mine come true. But the moment that thought crossed her morose mind, when the seraphim was implanted within her, the ultimate enchantment alternative granted by Michael was consumed, evolving Drifter into the ultimate enchantment world map. It was an astonishing ability, letting her accurately visualize any location in this world and grasp what was happening there at that moment. Even more amazingly, it also let her instantaneously travel to the location of her choice without any time lag. Someone with a spatially oriented skill would be shocked to hear of it. And yet, May's wish did not come true. The coordinates programmed into world map covered this world alone. It wouldn't let her cross the walls between dimensions, something she could understand without testing it out. It was a tragedy, a huge disappointment, but either way, I wasn't free right now. Everything was following the will of Michael. And until that day she could set off and freely travel back to her beloved brother, I would continue to follow orders, her heart closed to the world. The newborn mystic angels weren't the only ones trying to figure out what was going on. Zorario and Obila were thinking about their own situations as well. Zorario was quite grateful for his new physical body. He always had great power to wield, but it only really worked over in his own world. In the key world, the more power he exercised, the more energy he lost. A physical body was the only way to prevent this, but for someone as strong as Zorario, finding a vessel that could withstand his force was extremely difficult. That problem was solved now, allowing him to break out his full strength on the surface of the world, but another big problem arose. Well, great. Acquiring all this power has earned me Israfil, Lord of Trials, it seems. An angelic skill. And that was the issue. Zorario picked up Israfil as part of his new incarnation. Now there's no way for me to go against Michael. But if I do away with this skill, he'll think I am rebelling against him. Feldway, the way Zorario saw him, was a colleague. He recognized that Feldway could give him orders, but he wasn't absolutely obedient to him. He also had qualms about Michael. Feldway trusted Michael wholeheartedly, but Zorario did not. He wasn't about to readily trust the kind of will that's strictly based on someone else's authority. He agreed with their current objectives and was willing to help with them, but he couldn't say whether that'd be the case forever. He had wanted to avoid acquiring any angelic skills just in case the time came to part ways later on. Nonetheless, Israfil had been tossed into his lap. It wasn't an ultimate enchantment, so Michael's will had nothing to do with it. Zorario obtained this power naturally, that much was for sure, and that made it all the more impossible to throw away. Now, how much does Michael know about this? Given his ability to tame Veilgrind and Velzard, there's no doubt that Michael could wield full control over all angelic skills. But would he know exactly who possessed what? He should have thought about that question and acted accordingly. My will belongs to no one but me. I cannot allow anyone to rewrite my very thoughts without me realizing it. Zorario was a rational thinker. He didn't intervene when it came to dominating the true Dragon Sisters, not wanting to hurt its high chances of success, but in truth, he never liked that operation from the start. And now here he was, in pretty much the same position as them. Look at this. Just awful. It's what he deserved, he thought, for not putting his foot down against it first thing. He could see that now but didn't dwell on it. It was time to figure out how to deal with this. Obila, too, had acquired an angelic ultimate skill. And much like with Zorario, it was at best an unwelcome guest. During her evolution, Obila picked up the ultimate skill Azrael, Lord of Salvation. It was incredibly powerful, but ultimately useless to her. That was because, as a primordial angel, she was born with managerial abilities that were wholly non-reliant on skills. Primordials could instantly cast all kinds of magic, and that was enough to conduct their business without skills entering the picture. It was that resourcefulness that gave angels like her that aura of omnipotence. For Obila and her fellow primordials, who were already an ultimate form of existence, ultimate skills didn't really make any difference. She wasn't wishing for this at all, but she just had to get one at this exact moment. And of course it was going to be an angelic type. This is bad news. At this rate, he might find out that I'm turning traitor. That was exactly what Obila was intent on doing, which meant she was facing much more of a crisis than Zorario. She pondered over her options. Having her mind read wasn't a concern, it was easy for her to erase her surface conscious well enough. But she couldn't discount the possibility of falling under Michael's control without realizing it, and that called for countermeasures. Perhaps some self-suggestion is in order, she decided. If any contradiction made itself known in her mind, she would promptly destroy Azrael. It was an act that defied common sense, but for ultimate spiritual life forms like them, it was completely possible. Of course, if it were to reach that point, it'd mean a complete breakaway from Feldway. Not even Obila could be safe then. But even so, Obila felt no need for concern. The fate of Milim, the orphaned daughter of Veldinava, was at stake. It'd be beyond disrespectful for us to second-guess the thoughts of the Creator, wouldn't it? Perhaps Feldway isn't performing this resurrection on his own volition, but either way, he's gone far out of line. Those were her true feelings. Obila believed that Milim was the rightful successor to the title of Creator. The beautiful tones of a bell rang out, solemnly, clearly, and tugging at the heartstrings of all who heard it. Then the door opened. Michael, Feldway, and Velzard breezily walked in. The three of them alone radiated an aura so intense that it instantly banished the divine atmosphere of the audience chamber. Michael took his seat, followed by Feldway and Velzard. Now, let us begin. With that, their strategy conference kicked off. First, Mai was ordered to project a three-dimensional view of the entire key world in the center of the seating. This was, in essence, a miniature of the planet as perhaps seen by God, the bases of each demon lord depicted on it. These are the domains and strongholds of the octagram, the group of demon lords opposing us. There are 6 of them in total. At Michael's bidding, Mai placed 6 points of light on the lands: Guy's domain at the North Pole, Dagrel's in the far west, Luminous' a bit west of center, Raimuru's in the forest, Milim's to the southeast, and Leon's vast island continent. I would like to hear all of your opinions on how we should tackle this. Feldway was asking for feedback from the whole audience, but his eyes were on just a few members, his closest advisors Zorario and Obila, along with Yuki and Kagali. Dino and his cohorts weren't much for tactical thinking, and Vega was never going to contribute to something like this. Everyone else was a level below in Feldway's eyes, not even granted the right to speak. Zorario and Obila kept their mouths shut, perhaps gauging the reaction from the others. Kagali, picking up on this, spoke first. I would think the attackers would have the advantage here. I believe we should focus our fighting force on a single target. I agree with you there. It's just hard to figure out where to strike. The defending side was obligated to spread their forces wide, but there was no need for the attackers to follow their lead. Kagali and Yuki agreed on that, but, surprisingly, Dino was the first to react. Let me just say, you probably shouldn't attack Ramirez's labyrinth. Also, the Tempest capital of Raimuru is gonna be quarantined inside the labyrinth during the entire war. It's designed to be as tough to take down as possible, so I'd recommend saving it for last. This information had already been shared around, so nobody objected. If they stumbled in the labyrinth, they could quickly be surrounded and annihilated by reinforcements from all the other allied nations. Right. That'll be last, then. And perhaps attacking elsewhere will lure out some forces holed up in that labyrinth for us. Being dragged into a defensive battle would make Ramirez a major headache to deal with. They'd need to work out a clear strategy for whatever location they attacked. Velzard suddenly spoke, her gaze sharpened upon Leon's continent. There's nobody left in Icefire Castle right now. I don't see any sign of people, at least. The enemies thought up a few measures of their own, then? Consolidating the demon lords so they don't spread themselves too thin? Feldway mused. Indeed, said Michael. It looks like there are large powers concentrated upon 5 locations on the surface. Mike took the dot off the North Pole guy called home and turned up the brightness on the other 5. They had eliminated one option, although now the difficulty level seemed much higher. Despite that, the attacking side still had a great advantage. So where to aim? Zorario was the first to make a move. Sir Feldway, I have a question. What's that? We know that Sir Michael has full control over the angelic set of skills, but can he find out where the owners of these skills are, or at least a general idea of their location? It was a vital question, one that had major implications for Zorario himself. I was wondering about that, too, added Obila. If we had a grasp of that, we should try to recruit those skill holders first. Michael nodded. I was unable to sense it before, but now, it has come into focus. I see that you and Zorario have Azrael and Israfil, and Dino's group has Astarte, Haniel, and Jibril as well. Kagali has taken Melchizedek, the remaining skill, and Arius over there is now the owner of Sandalphone. As for the higher-level angelics, the ones on my level. He paused at this point, scowling. Something is missing. The words caused everyone to tense up. What do you mean, my lord? Feldway asked. First, Michael began in a straightforward tone, Ragwell, the one Vielgrind possessed. I recovered it from her and granted it to a qualified receiver. No one reacted. An eerie silence pervaded, but Michael paid it no mind. Next is Gabriel. This has not been retrieved from its source. It's still possessed by Velzard, isn't it? The Ice Beauty remained motionless, no expression on her face. It was the natural step to take, in order to ensure the ultimate dominion over her stayed active. So I know the owner of all these skills so far, but out of the remaining 4, 3 are still in question. As Michael explained, he had taken Vielgrind's abilities as his own, as well as Velzard's draconic factors. This greatly increased his powers, granting him the ability to search for the owners of the angelic skills under his control. However, the only one of the 4 remaining skills he could track down was Metatron, Lord of Purity. What? But didn't the hero Chronoa possess the ultimate skill Sariel, Lord of Hope? I failed to detect it. Either my detection skills cannot reach into Ramirez's labyrinth, or there is some other cause afoot. I cannot say. No, Ramirez is not one to trifle with. Perhaps the labyrinth is impossible for us to see into, then. Should we take that to mean that the owners of Uriel and Raphael are in the same location as Sariel? We can't be sure, but it seems reasonable to assume so. There is no other possible place that my detection skill could not penetrate. No skill created by Veldenava could go undetected by Michael. The only way to explain this was Mazecraft, Ramirez's intrinsic skill. This was why Michael concluded that the 3 missing skills must be in the same location. He was correct, in a way. All 3 of them were already gone from this world, their very essences transformed into something else, but, unaware of this, Michael assumed this problem was solved, and so did Feldway and the others. Well, that's not a problem, then. We know Veldora's in that labyrinth, so we'll be attacking it sooner or later anyway. We can just track down those skill holders then, and add them to our ranks. It's kind of like having an inside mole, isn't it? Exactly. So let's drop this topic for now. A single peek inside that labyrinth, and we'll know where all the skills are. What we need to consider right now is which target to strike first. Well, I think we've already answered that question. If we're 100% sure where one of those angelic skills is, let's add that guy to our group first, why don't we? That was Yuki's conclusion. His free will had been taken away, but his deep insight was still alive and well. The one who possesses Metatron is here. All eyes focused on Michael's finger. He was pointing straight at El Dorado, the capital of Leon's domain. The demon lord Leon, muttered Cagali. The one who killed me? So it was Metatron, Lord of Purity, then? The blinding flash of light that burned her until she was a pile of ash? Now it was clear to her. Sounds like we have a plan. Yuki smiled. So who'll be attacking? I'll go, Vega offered. I dunno who this demon Lord Leon guy is, but nobody minds if I eat him, right? Weren't you even listening? Leon might wind up becoming our ally. Tisk. Oh, all right. I'll make do with some other guys, then. Yuki and Vega were chatting like they already had a plan ratified. But with no one else objecting, that was the direction they went in. The whole object of this was to revive Veldenava, so there was no need to send a formal declaration of war. That was Michael and Feldway's decision, and inevitably that meant things would kick off with a surprise attack. There wasn't any need to be stingy with the firepower they threw into this, but Feldway had his own ideas about that. So our objective here is to recruit the possessor of Metatron. If we could eliminate at least a few of the fighters who'd get in the way of that, even better, but I wouldn't want to see this result in too many casualties. Let's leave the rank-and-file soldiers behind for this one. Only the strongest would be involved in this. Michael's ultimate dominion might have been all-powerful, but it wasn't universally available. It held absolute control over angelic skills, yet the user still had to make eye contact with the target to make it work. Dominion Bullet, lent to Lieutenant Kondo, only worked against a single target, and it also was unlikely to work unless you diverted that target's attention. Regalia Dominion, by contrast, could control a varying number of people, depending on the existence points of the targets. Another important factor, the success rate went down if the target was of similar rank to the skill user, which meant it was likely to fail unless this target was fairly seriously wounded. Success wasn't really guaranteed unless the target was below the user in rank, which made it a difficult power to leverage very well. Michael's EP was at around 90 million. However, Yuki's own EP of around 2 million needed to be subtracted from this. And considering Veldora's EP was 88 million, Regalia Dominion wasn't likely to work on him. Michael had no way of knowing this, of course, but he still thought that controlling Veldora would be a trying task at best. That's why he wanted to gather up as much offensive force as he could before tackling Ramirez's labyrinth. So they needed to decide who to deploy on this mission. I'm staying behind. Dino spoke up first. No one objected. What about myself and my force? Xeranus asked. For now, I'd like you to be prepared to move your forces. This operation will be followed by a full-scale invasion. Very well. The Insectors, much like the Mystics, would be preparing for total war. Darles and Nice would manage the Zorario force, while Obila would need to return to the Otherworld to pick up her force before handing it over to Oma. Now all the top staff were deploying for war. Mai could use her skill to instantly transport just this group to their destination. Obila could also use Detect Aura to easily work out the right coordinates and teleport herself right over. That was how the logistics would work, and with that, the surprise attack was underway. Chapter 4, Aspirations Shattered. So I got word from Dino, but what he had to tell me was pretty whacked out. I guess I should have seen it coming, but yes, Michael was on the move. That much was expected, so I didn't mind, but the real surprise was what Obila was up to. It turns out that she left Michael's camp for an unknown destination, and took her army with her. I was stunned. What? You're kidding me? Nope. I'm pretty surprised, too. And get this, Michael's still completely unaware of it. I'm about to go inform him. Wow. He really is a huge idiot, isn't he? Now I'm sure of it. With everything going on, is now really the time to get lazy about that sort of thing? And before that, why is he leaking stuff out to the enemy before telling his own boss about it? I mean, Dino being that way helps a lot and all, but, now I'm feeling just a little sympathetic for Michael and Feldway. But before I get too carried away, let's ask one important question. So where are you guys gonna attack? Oh, yeah, they're attacking Leon City. Like I said, Obila's AWOL and I'm holding down the fort here, so all the other top brass are on the move. Pico and Gasha got taken along against their will, too, so could you give them a pass if you happen to get in a fight with them? You think I can guarantee that? I'll keep it in mind, but... Thanks. Oh, also, I got one more favor to ask. Make it quick. I'm kinda busy. I was preparing to set off for battle, in fact. But I let Dino have his say. I guess I sorta miss working with Vesta and Ramirez and the gang. It's so boring up here, So can you hurry up and beat Michael's ass for me? And then get me outta here. I was stunned into silence. Look, did you get hit in the head or something? You understand that's nothing you're supposed to say to the enemy, right? Wow, so mean. We're friends, aren't we? Quit being so cold like that. Oh, right, I just remembered, did you apologize to Ramirez for me yet? I wanna make up with her later. Don't give me that crap. I told you to go apologize yourself. Wait a second, Rimuru. Regardless. Yes, regardless, I'm not about to let anyone be mind-controlled against their will like this. Regardless, just do your best to get out from your mind control for me, okay? Hurry up before you shame all us other demon lords. Ha ha ha. I'll try. But, hey, I know I can depend on you and stuff. Nobody's better at leaving work to other people than me, so I hope you don't mind me taking advantage of you like that, okay? He was really starting to piss me off. I'd expect nothing else from him. Also, one more word of warning. Feldway's in league with the Insectors. I know. It sure doesn't sound like good news. Oh, it's beyond bad. Their king, Xeranus, we met for the first time, but he might be even higher up there than Guy. I won't know unless I try, but I'm sure I wouldn't win even if I went all out. He and his force are sitting out this current attack, but I dunno when they'll spring into action, so keep your guard up, okay? I didn't need that advice from him. But as intel, it was really valuable, and really ominous. Hearing he outstripped Guy ratcheted up my despair to maximum. If someone that dangerous is both leading an army and resting up for now, we'll need to make sure we can respond to any move from him immediately. I thought about calling back Geld and the other guys I had stationed across the land, but opted against it. If they targeted us wherever we were short-handed, we'd be on the ropes in a hurry. We'll just have to make do with the forces we have on hand. Thanks for the warning. I'll tell everyone, and we'll stay on the lookout. Now, seriously, try a little up there, won't you? Sure. Don't get yourself killed, Rimuru. He didn't have to remind me. I was on my second life as a slime, and I wanted to enjoy it for a change. It had been nothing but war for a while. I wanted to just clean up all this mess and take it easy. I wanted to have a blast with all my friends, too, and that included Dino, of course. You too, I replied, and I meant it, from the bottom of my heart. As soon as I finished my conversation with Dino, I called the cabinet members still standing by in our capital of Rimuru. We assembled in the control center. Our Argos surveillance system was showing us Leon's base of operations, but the whole area was being walloped by a blizzard, making it impossible to see anything. Considering El Dorado's usually mild climate, a blizzard like this was clearly unnatural. It was obviously Velzard's work. There was no contact from anyone on Leon's side, and we had no way of visually confirming the enemy. Communications were probably being jammed somehow, and overall, Dino was starting to look pretty darn correct about all this. If the enemy was deploying strictly the main forces, we'd need to call up something appropriate in return. We need to send some support for the guys already there. Mess that up, though, and it could lead to enormous damage. Too many of us sent over there, and the labyrinth would be too thinly guarded, too few, and we couldn't complete the mission. We were being asked to thread an exceedingly small needle. I see. So the enemy's on the large side, then? Benimaru's eyes lit up when I told him what Dino had said to me. He was ready to go out there right now, and I wasn't about to stop him. I was thinking about backing up our crew over there with just me, Ranga, and Ci to start out, but it's looking like a more powerful force than we thought. We could be in danger if we hold back, so I'll want you to join us, Benimaru. Oh, that goes without saying. Who else will you take with you? Benimaru broke into a giddy smile when I announced I was bringing him. As long as he was going, I don't think he really cared who else was there. Me, perhaps? No. I killed Veldora's proposal immediately. He really needs to think a little more. Yes, it'd certainly be reassuring to have him on our side, and I'll admit that he'd be a huge asset in battle, but I can't have him so conveniently forgetting that he's the enemy's biggest target. Look, you need to realize that they're after you, okay? And in the first place, we can always revive ourselves as long as one of us is safe, so both of us fighting at the same time is the stupidest idea ever. Qua ha ha ha. Perhaps I was careless, yes. Leave the labyrinth defenses to me, then. Yes. Please. We're in serious trouble here, okay? Don't try anything funny, I'm begging you. So, with our problem child out of the picture, I turned toward Sijin. Now, as for you and Apito, I'd like you both to continue guarding the labyrinth. I think they got some serious threats on their side, so we can't afford to leave the place completely empty. We will be on the job, Surimaru. Good hunting out there. So encouraging. We have the Dragon Lords on standby down there as well, so they should still be a pretty respectable force, them, and Thraney, Beretta, and Cherries, too. Cherries, make sure you keep an eye on Veldora so he doesn't go out of control on us. There is no need to remind me, Sir Rimuru. I will be sure to keep a close watch on Sir Veldora, so you may go into battle with full peace of mind. Huh? I'm being watched now. Don't worry about it. No, I rather am worried. Here, just read this and relax a bit. Seeing Cherries all but force a manga volume into Veldora's hands was encouraging in a much different way. Yeah, so just leave my master here to us. We have the labyrinth well defended, and we are training hard so that we won't be caught unawares next time. I very much look forward to showing you the results. Hopefully the opportunity won't present itself, but doing all this prep work just in case is reassuring to see. I nodded my approval back at Thraney. With the power you've given me, Sir Rimuru, I am stronger than ever. I have never missed a day of training.